There are moments in a woman's life when something quiet and imperceptible begins to shift, as if an unseen hand touches the edge of her inner world and the air suddenly changes temperature. It's not dramatic, not loud. It is more like a faint tremor in the psyche, a soft summons from a place she hasn't visited in a very long time. And when this call arrives after the age of 60, it carries a different gravity. It is not the flutter of youthful infatuation, nor the romantic intoxication that once defined her 20s. It is something older, wiser, more dangerous. A threshold moment what Jung would have called a synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that signals the unconscious has begun to move, seeking her attention. The psyche has chosen its moment. It always does. When the woman entered my practice that morning, elegant, composed, her life seemingly arranged into decades of exquisite order, she did not look like someone standing at the edge of an inner revolution. Yet the unconscious never announces itself with fanfare. It slips in through the cracks of routine, through the hollow spaces left by loss, through the sudden widening of an afternoon silence. And when she said, "I have fallen in love, and I feel as if I'm losing control of my life," what I actually heard was far older than her words. I heard the ancient pull of Eros, not the modern idea of romance, but the primordial force that Jung described as the great binder and unbinder of the psyche. Eros is not sentimental. Eros rearranges destinies. For many women entering the 7th decade of life, the persona, the social mask crafted through family roles, achievements, and years of self-discipline feels solid, even reliable. It has served them well. The mother, the professional, the caretaker, the capable one. But the persona is only ever a mask, and masks crack. Jung insisted that the psyche seeks wholeness, not stability. And so life has a way of presenting precisely the experience that will fracture the old shell. Falling in love after 60 is not simply falling in love. It is an initiation, a destabilization, a reminder that the soul still demands participation, not withdrawal. Yet what makes this experience particularly perilous is that it often begins not with love, but with loneliness. A loneliness so subtle it has woven itself into the wallpaper of her days. Children long grown, partners lost to divorce or death, a house suddenly too large for its silence. Loneliness, in Jungian terms, is not merely an emotional state, it is a sign of psychic disconnection from the self, the deep center of the psyche that holds one's true vitality. When someone appears in this landscape, a voice, a hand, a gaze that suddenly makes her feel seen, the psyche moves quickly, too quickly. The relief is mislabeled as destiny. The soft warmth of attention is mistaken for a soul bond. The anima or animus projection activates, casting mythic significance onto an ordinary human being. And so the story begins not with love, but with the confusion between the longing for connection and the longing for an actual partner. This confusion, when unrecognized, sets the stage for every danger that follows the collapse of boundaries, the erosion of judgment, the frantic belief that time is running out. Yet beneath all of this churns something deeper, the unconscious, pushing her toward a long postponed encounter with her own forgotten depths. What happens next is rarely visible from the outside. It begins as a subtle tightening in the chest, a feeling of being pulled forward by a force, both exhilarating and unnerving. After 60, the experience of time shifts. It no longer stretches endlessly ahead like an open horizon, but gathers itself into something denser, more precious. This shift often activates what Jung understood as the existential threshold, the moment when a person becomes acutely aware of the finitude of life. In such moments, the unconscious whispers a primitive fear. This may be your last chance, and that whisper so quiet, yet so authoritative, can distort perception more powerfully than any external pressure. This woman, like many before her, felt the sensation of urgency rising not from her partner, but from within her own psyche. Jung wrote that the psyche projects what it cannot yet bear to see. When the inner fear of loneliness surfaces, it is often experienced as external necessity. She believed she had to move fast, commit quickly, surrender boundaries in the name of love. But in truth, it was not he who demanded acceleration. It was her own unexamined longing, her shadowed fear of vanishing into the margins of life. The unconscious, when ignored, uses urgency as a tactic to force engagement. Shadow, in Jungian psychology, refers to the disowned aspects of the self, the impulses, desires, anger, and unmet needs that have been pushed into darkness. For many women over 60, the shadow contains decades of unspoken hunger for intimacy, for recognition, for a life that was never fully lived. When love arrives, or something that resembles it, these shadowed desires surge upward. They appear as overwhelming certainty, as the sense that this person is irreplaceable, essential, fated. In reality, it is the woman's own unlived life rushing toward her through the figure of the beloved. This psychological projection is not a mistake. It is how the psyche attempts to heal. But when projections are mistaken for truth, they become dangerous. The woman begins to interpret her partner's availability as destiny, his charm as depth, his attention as devotion. She accelerates the relationship not because she knows him, but because she longs to know herself again, longs to feel alive, wanted, tethered to something meaningful. The tragedy is that she confuses the archetypal awakening of Eros with the personal qualities of the man standing before her. This is how women who are wise, educated, and deeply experienced find themselves making decisions that defy their own history. They move in together after weeks. They ignore financial warnings. They silence the concerns of their adult children. They bypass the slow unfolding that genuine intimacy requires. Not because they are foolish, but because the unconscious has slipped its hand onto the steering wheel. And the ego, startled by its own reawakened longing, mistakes the tremor of awakening for the presence of the self. But the self, the central archetype of wholeness in Jung's work, never demands haste. The self moves with the patience of mountains. It does not rush, manipulate, or coerce. What pushes is never the self, but fear. And fear, when it disguises itself as passion or inevitability, leads even the strongest women into entanglements that siphon their autonomy, distort their judgment, and leave them depleted. This is why Jung insisted on a period of withdrawal in any major psychic transition. Withdrawal is not avoidance. It is the psyche's way of slowing the tempo so that consciousness can catch up with the intensity of the unconscious. But most women, when touched by late-life love, skip this essential phase. Instead of stepping back, they lean forward. Instead of listening inward, they listen outward, and the path bends toward danger. Because beneath the urgency lies a deeper descent, a movement into the underworld of the psyche, where old wounds stir, archetypes awaken, and long-buried patterns rise to the surface, demanding to be seen at last. To enter this underworld is not a poetic metaphor. It is a lived psychological descent. Jung called it the night sea journey, that ancient motif in which a person is carried into the depths, not by choice, but by an archetypal necessity that pulls them downward. For the woman who falls in love after 60, this descent often begins with a quiet disorientation. She notices herself becoming reactive in ways she thought she had long outgrown. Old insecurities flicker alive. Emotional boundaries that once felt immovable soften under the warmth of attention. This is the beginning of a confrontation with the shadow, not the small personal shadow of petty flaws, but the vast shadow of unlived life. In the underworld, the ghosts of her earlier selves appear. The young woman who silenced her needs to keep the peace. The middle-aged mother who carried the emotional weight of a household. The partner who postponed her own longing in service of a marriage, a family, a career. These forgotten selves stir in the presence of new love because Ero, in its archetypal form, awakens every part of the psyche that has been dormant. And so the descent continues, deeper, darker, more intimate than any romance. She is not confronting a man, she is confronting the entire architecture of her life. This phase is marked by a strange doubling of experience. Outwardly, she may feel bliss, exhilaration, a renewed sense of possibility. But inwardly, something begins to fracture. Old wounds reappear with startling clarity: the fear of abandonment, the longing to be chosen, the wish to be seen without needing to earn it. This is the territory of the animus, the inner masculine figure in a woman's psyche that shapes how she relates to men, authority, and her own aspirations. When the animus is unconscious, it projects itself onto a partner, idealizing him as savior, guide, or answer. But when the animus is wounded, it also attracts figures who exploit, manipulate, or drain her vitality. In this way, the descent becomes a confrontation not only with the shadow, but with the father complex. Jung used this term to describe the deep psychic imprint left by a woman's early experiences with the masculine. If her father offered love conditionally, she may feel compelled to prove herself worthy in every relationship. If he was absent, she may cling to any man who promises presence. If he was controlling, she may unconsciously repeat the pattern through partners who dominate her choices. These complexes lie dormant for decades, waiting for an archetypal activation. Late life love provides exactly that. As the descent deepens, another layer emerges: the collective feminine lineage. Women often carry the unspoken stories of their mothers' and grandmothers' sacrifices, silences, emotional compromises inherited like invisible DNA. When a woman after 60 falls in love, she is not only choosing a partner, she is entering a psychological field charged with generations of unmet longing. The pressure to merge quickly, to keep the peace, to ignore red flags. These impulses may not be hers alone. They may belong to the women who came before her, all whispering through the unconscious, urging her toward the familiar path of self-abandonment. In this underworld, illusions dissolve. The partner who seemed luminous becomes more human. His charm reveals its shadows, his attentiveness exposes its demands, and she begins to see not only who he is, but what inner hunger she has projected onto him. This is the painful clarity of the descent. She realizes that much of what she called love was actually the psyche's attempt to reclaim forgotten parts of herself. But descent is not punishment. It is initiation. Only by walking through this inner darkness can she begin to reclaim the authority she once surrendered. Only by seeing her projections can she retrieve the energy she once placed in others. And only by confronting the underworld can she rise. What begins to emerge after this descent is a dim but unmistakable light, an inner torch that does not come from the outer relationship, but from a deeper awakening within her. Jung believed that when a projection collapses, what returns to the individual is not despair but energy. Libido, in the Jungian sense, is not sexual only. It is the fundamental life force that wishes to grow, create, expand. As the woman withdraws her projections from the figure she once idealized, something extraordinary happens. The energy she had poured outward into pleasing, merging, adapting flows back into her psyche. And with this return comes a new question, one she has not asked in decades. What does my soul actually want? At first, the question terrifies her. A lifetime of social conditioning has taught her that devotion is virtue, that self-sacrifice is love, that prioritizing her inner world is selfish. But the self, the deep organizing principle of the psyche, does not care about these cultural expectations. The self insists on individuation, the process of becoming who one truly is, no longer shaped by unconscious forces or inherited patterns. Individuation after 60 is especially powerful because the ego, long shaped by duty and roles, is finally porous enough for the self to speak clearly. The soul does not whisper anymore. It begins to articulate. She feels a new solitude forming inside her, an inner spaciousness that at first feels like loss, but gradually becomes a sanctuary. This is not the loneliness that once gnawed at her evenings. It is psychological solitude, a state Jung described as necessary for true consciousness. In this solitude, she begins to see that the partner who once seemed essential is simply one figure in a larger drama, a catalyst but not a destiny. It is not he who awakened her, it is she who is ready to awaken. And as she steps back, even slightly, she begins to see the patterns that once controlled her choices, the rushing, the fear of missing the last chance, the willingness to overlook contradictions, the pressure to merge worlds without reflection. These impulses feel less like love now and more like echoes of ancestral women who surrendered too much, echoes of her father complex, echoes of her own unmet needs. With every step of recognition, another chain loosens. She stops apologizing for her boundaries. She stops justifying her intuition. She stops defending what her deeper knowing refuses to accept. This is the moment in analysis when consciousness reorganizes itself around truth instead of fear. But the psyche is not finished with her. There is another realm she must face, one that late-life love always stirs, whether one admits it or not, the realm of family, lineage, and emotional legacy. Love after 60 is not a private act. It sends ripples through the relational field that holds children, grandchildren, and old friends, those who have witnessed her life's long arc. Jung observed that the psyche of an individual is never isolated. It is embedded in the collective, especially the family unconscious. When a woman brings a new partner into her world, she is not merging only two adult lives, she is merging entire histories. It is here, in this relational field, that the greatest testing occurs. If the partner is healthy, respectful, capable of meeting her as an equal, he will understand that love must integrate, not dominate. He will not rush her, isolate her, or undermine her relationships, or weaponize her longing. But if he carries the shadow of entitlement or the hunger for control, the tension in the family field exposes it immediately. Her children sense imbalance before she does. Old friends withdraw, conflicts sharpen, emotional gravity shifts. The family field becomes the mirror she does not want but desperately needs. And she stands at a crossroads, continue bending to an outer relationship that fractures her inner and outer worlds, or step into a new sovereignty shaped not by fear of loneliness but by fidelity to the self. If she chooses sovereignty, if she chooses to align her life with the quiet authority rising from within, something remarkable begins. The fragmentation that once pulled her in conflicting directions begins to dissolve. The ego, long exhausted from performing, pleasing, adapting, starts to relax its compulsive vigilance. In its place, a clearer center emerges. Jung would call this the alignment of the ego with the self, the moment when one's life no longer orbits fear, projection, or unexamined longing, but becomes rooted in the deeper truth of one's being. And for a woman over 60, this alignment is not merely psychological, it is ancestral. It reshapes the story of every woman who came before her and strengthens the path for every woman who will come after. She begins, slowly, to reclaim her autonomy not as rebellion, but as a return. She keeps her finances separate because she understands now that boundaries are a form of love. She meets her partner without collapsing into him. She welcomes her children's concerns not as intrusion, but as care. She notices, perhaps for the first time, that the love she once rushed toward now feels different when it unfolds at a sustainable pace. The frantic urgency dissolves. In its place grows a quieter, steadier bond if the man standing with her is capable of meeting her truthfully. If he is not, the relationship disintegrates under the weight of her awakening. Individuation leaves no room for illusions. In these moments, the woman discovers the paradox at the heart of late-life love. Only when she becomes whole can she choose a partner freely. No longer seeking rescue, she becomes capable of discerning. No longer projecting her unlived life onto another, she becomes capable of true intimacy. No longer driven by fear, she becomes capable of love that strengthens rather than diminishes her. And if she must walk away, she does so not with bitterness but with a fierce clarity that feels like liberation. The family field responds in kind. Relationships with children that once felt strained begin to soften. Conversations deepen. Trust grows not because she obeyed their warnings, but because she has stepped into a psychological adulthood that few achieve, regardless of age. Her presence becomes more grounded, more transparent, more attuned. She becomes, perhaps without realizing it, a generational axis, someone who models what it looks like to choose connection without abandoning oneself. And then something else arrives, something subtle yet profound. The libido she once poured into a man now flows back into her creative life. She writes again, paints again, travels with curiosity rather than desperation, learns new forms of movement, new languages, new ways of inhabiting her own body. Eros, freed from projection, becomes the engine of her late-life creativity, and the world around her senses it. Strangers remark on the light in her face. Friends say she seems more alive. She has stepped into what Jung would call the second flowering, the stage in which the soul, relieved of its old burdens, begins to bloom in its own time. This is not a triumphal narrative. She is not invulnerable, nor is she immune to longing. But something essential has shifted. She no longer confuses attention with love, urgency with destiny, desire with truth. She no longer abandons her inner world to maintain outer harmony. She lives from the center now, not the periphery. And this, ultimately, is the heart of her transformation. She has come home to herself. Final insight. The self does not ask you to choose between love and autonomy. It asks you to become the woman for whom those two are the same thing. If you wish to keep exploring the deep landscapes of Jungian psychology, feminine consciousness, and the inner initiations that shape a woman's life, you are invited to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with those who may need its guidance, and join the conversation below with your reflections.